It's always about this time of the year where a player emerges as
the man,
someone that could have a huge domino effect on the rest of the trades.
Yep.
Tim Taranto is going to be it this year. He's out of contract at Greater Western Sydney. He's been offered an extension, but it's on less money that he's currently on.
What's he on up there at the moment?
I mean, we always have to talk in rough figures because
roughly 6.5.
He'd be on somewhere between 6 and 650.
What's he been offered?
Less than that.
How much less?
Well, I'd say around the $500,000 mark.
Okay.
He's had a tough year. He hasn't had the best year. He's been injured. He's coming back from injury. He's a best and fairest winner in a grand final year. They are hard to win. He's only 24, so he's not a free agent. Now, the clubs that are in for him are the big clubs. We're talking Richmond, Collingwood, Essendon, Geelong, maybe even St Kilda, although I think that they would be further down the line because they were interested in him a couple of years ago.
Seaford.
Yep. Now, Richmond's interest is a fascinating one, Gerard, because they have previously had a massive crack at Tom Green, who is, of course, the grandson of Michael, a four-time premiership great, a Hall of Famer at the
Future
Tigers.
captain.
Tom very happy at GWS.
North Bondi boy now.
And will be staying at Western Sydney. So they've turned their attention to his Bull teammate, Tim Taranto, who's out of contract.
So this is a salary cap squeeze.
Yeah, well, they've got 4 players taking up $4 million a year in their salary cap. Stephen Canelio's on over 1.2. You've got Josh Kelly, who's on over $1 million. You've got then Whitfield and Green, who are both on $900,000. So there's $4 million. The salary cap's only 13.5. So you do the maths, it's around 30%. Now, I don't think anyone has problems with those guys earning that sort of money when you're making prelims, when you're making grand finals. When you're not making the 8 and you've got that problem, it becomes an issue. They need to pay Tom Green. There's some other kids coming through that they need to pay. Tim Taranto, I think, will end up being the one that is squeezed out. And there are going to be plenty of suitors, as I've just told you.
So what sort of deal have, say, the Bombers offered?
No, I don't know anything about deals yet for Tim Taranto that I can confirm to you. All I would say, Gerard, is that these clubs would offer long-term contracts.
Okie doke. Isaac Rankin.
Isaac Rankin is staying at the goals.
Right now, he is the number 1 small forward in the game, according to Champion data.
Is he the number 1? Is he better than Charlie Cameron?
Since round 8, he's ranked higher.
Okay. Well, he's going to be staying at the Gold Coast
Stengel,
which is it's great news for Gold Coast. We're going to speak to Stewie Dew tonight, so we can ask him.
Indeed. He's
going to be staying at the Gold Coast Suns. The Bombers were hugely interested in him. Now, depending on who you talk to, there would be people up north saying that Essendon offered a huge, mammoth 5-year deal to Isaac Rankin. Essendon will say, hang on, we didn't offer any deal. We simply spoke to his management. What kind of interest would there be? We didn't talk any figures. But
give us some figures, Scoop. What number was being bandied around?
Well,
was it north of $6 million?
6 million or 4 million?
Was it 4 million? For 5 years. That's $800 a year.
That's the sort of, they are the numbers that have been thrown around when you talk to clubs, when you talk to player managers, when you talk to industry figures. Essendon, who I've spoken to
Free
tonight,
coffee at Bay 101?
Are adamant that is not correct.
Okay.
Now, it's always difficult to know, Gerard,
good player,
exactly what is right and what is beaten up a little bit, particularly when a player has then told a club that he's not coming. So it's hard to know. All I can tell you is that Isaac Rankin is going to stay at the Gold Coast Suns, which is pretty good news.
Where do you think Taranto will finish?
I don't know. It's far too early. If GWS were on air right now, they'd be saying we're confident we're going to keep him, but they say that about all good players.
Yep.
I would say right now Richmond would be the hot favourite. Yeah, he fits their list where they're at right now perfectly. He's a long-term replacement for Trent Cotchin. I would think that they would be the favourites.
Well, Scoop, a good story unfolding, a perfect segue if Taranto is going to Richmond to introduce this man. Well, Richo, let's get down to basics. Outstanding job if you put your hand up for the permanent hosting of the front bar.
Thanks, Gerard. Yeah, it was good fun to do something different and sit alongside Mick. I've worked with Mick before at Channel 7, obviously, and Santo's just a great guy. And, yeah, really enjoyed it. Shorey came on and we had a bit of fun with Shorey, the stage show that's coming on. Chris Scott was a guest as well. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So back to Sportsday, though, on Wednesday nights now.
Oh, well.
Thanks for the night off, though.
That's okay. You back to your number 1 job.
Exactly.
Maybe you go with the back bar or something along those lines. A bit more grungy. Gee, interesting story from Scoop.
Yeah, that's a big story. I think I think obviously Taranto will be in demand from a number of clubs, and Sam mentioned a few of them there. He mentioned Richmond being number one. Well, clearly they'd be into a midfielder, you would think, like Taranto, because Trent Cotchin, even if he plays on, he's probably got one more year. Lambert, obviously his hip is gone. You would think he's probably not going to play. Presty is getting older. He's 30 and had injury issues, and we know Dusty's 32 now, as well.
Is he the right player, Richo? If you're...
I would think he would be exactly what Richmond would need. Play inside. He can get plenty of the footy.
Forward too.
Yeah, and they need a midfielder, and he's in the right age bracket,
24,
obviously.
yeah.
The whole notion of the salary cap, though, and Brian Cook was here a couple of weeks ago, or last week, talking about the difficulties of keeping all your star players. But unless you find a way to massage the player managers and their wants, you don't end up winning premierships, Richo, because you end up losing Taranto. You end up losing possibly an Isaac Rankin who's stayed. If you want to have success, you've got to find a way where no one's on so much money, particularly midfielders, because they're ultimately, there's, with one or two exceptions, they are a dime a dozen.
I mean, it's the key to having a successful footy club, isn't it? Being able to keep a list together, being able to manage payments, keep them within expectations. Don't pay somebody way over the odds and then lose someone else down the track, a young player coming through. So that's the challenge of list management. And if you've got a good list manager who can do that, then you're going to be way in front of some of the opposition.
I think if you're going to pay $1 million plus, you've got to be the power forward, mid forward, like Oliver, like Petrarca, like Dusty. You just can't be your average, A-grade midfielder, because you need 4 or 5 of those to win a flag.
I think if you're going to pay a midfielder $1 million, you've got to kick goals. You've got to kick a goal in a game, a goal and a half a game. And how many of those are there? I mean, Petrarca, as good as he is, he went 5 weeks without kicking a goal. Bounced back last week with 3 goals. Oliver's one of a kind. I mean, he's a hunter of the ball like we've never seen in the game before. I mean, Melbourne would have paid him close to that, and so he should get it because he's a generational player. But yeah, you've got to be careful you don't pay too much.
What is the perfect sort of player that an Essendon need, do you think, Gerard and Richo?
I think they need goal.
If they've had a crack
midfielders
at Rankin and yet they're going after a Taranto, I mean, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that they haven't had a big-bodied inside ball-winning mid since Joe Watson retired, have they?
No, well,
that's
Stringer played that role at the end of last year, goal-kicking inside mid who could go into the centre bounce, burst clear and kick goals.
Which is why he was close to being All-Australian.
Exactly, right? But unfortunately, Jake just hasn't been able to stay fit or recapture that form, although he did in the last quarter last week, and it was the reason they won the game.
So if you had a lot of cash, Richo, what would be the type of player you think?
Well, goal kick, midfielder that kicks goals.
Is Taranto that for them?
Definitely. He played the green role when Toby Green was suspended. He can be that mid-forward. He's a very good player in the inside. He's just a good, genuine midfielder, but he's a goal kicker. He was as a kid, and he has been as a senior.
Yeah, but you just got to make sure you don't pay too much. So he's going to be highly in demand, as you've
Well, if the base rate
out.
is $450 at the Giants, and let's call it $600.
Well, they clearly know they're not going to keep him at $450.
That's right.
I mean, that's just not going to.
Every club in the country will be into him if his base rate is $450. Now he's on $600 according to. You don't
often turn 24 and go backwards, do you, in your pay scale?
Not when you're as good as him.
This should be his contract where he gets paid. Your mid-20s, you've got that over 100 games experience, you're a bona fide AFL midfielder, and you expect to get paid on this contract.
If you had one choice, Richo, and you could either take Isaac Rankin or Taranto.
For any club, or am I looking for a needs?
No, just any club. Who would you take?
Oh, gee, that's tough. I mean, from what you've seen of Rankin the last 6 weeks,
he's got recency bias.
The ceiling looks pretty high with him at the moment.
Yep.
He's got special traits that not many players have. That's a tough question.
Feels like he's only going to get. I mean,
they're different.
Just starting.
We haven't even seen what his ceiling could be.
No,
we're starting to see it.
Well,
Stewie would be pretty happy with it.